A desperate little girl runs out crying to a Fedex delivery driver, frantically pointing toward her house. Minutes later, police cars swarm in and shut down the entire street. What the frightened child confesses to the driver turns his ordinary morning route into a nightmare, uncovering something that had remained hidden for far too long. Nathan Carter guided his FedEx truck through the quiet streets of Maplewood, the morning sun casting long shadows over freshly trimmed lawns and brick homes. He glanced at the dashboard clock, 8:20 a.m. Already running 35 minutes behind schedule, thanks to an unexpected reroute earlier in the morning. It wasn't like him to be late, but sometimes the job threw unpredictable challenges his way. He took pride in his work, knowing that his deliveries were a small but necessary part of keeping the community moving. He recognized most of the homes on his route, the familiar faces of customers who expected their packages on time. As he approached the next stop, he spotted a woman and a little girl getting out of their car. He knew them well, Clara and her daughter, Emma. He had delivered to their house for the past 2 years. Normally, they greeted him with a smile, but something was different today. When Nathan waved and called out a friendly, "Good morning," Emma kept her head down, her small hands clutching the straps of her backpack. Clara forced a weak smile, barely muttering a greeting before hurrying her daughter inside. The exchange left a strange feeling in Nathan's gut. Shaking off his concern, Nathan grabbed the small box destined for their address. As he approached their porch, he noticed something odd, a neatly tied trash bag sitting at the edge of the steps. He wasn't one to pry, but something about it caught his eye. The bag was heavier than it looked, the outline of what appeared to be brand new items pressing against the plastic. As he stepped back to his truck, a slight gust of wind blew the bag open just enough for him to see inside. His breath caught. Brand new children's clothes with the tags still attached, a backpack, and school supplies. Confusion flickered through his mind. Why would Clara throw away things that looked unused? His first thought was that it must have been a mistake. Maybe she had meant to donate them? Something felt off, but he shook it off and continued his route. A few houses down, as he delivered another package, a sudden movement caught his attention. Emma was running toward him, her face streaked with tears. She grabbed onto his uniform, clutching the fabric desperately. "Please help," she sobbed, pointing toward her house. Nathan crouched down, gently resting his hands on her small shoulders. Hey, slow down. What's wrong?" Her voice was shaky, barely above a whisper. "He's hurting Mommy again. Please, don't let him take her." Nathan felt his stomach drop. His eyes darted back to the house, his heart pounding. "Who, Emma? Who's hurting your mom?" She didn't need to answer. The front door slammed open, and a tall man stepped out onto the porch. Nathan had never met Clara's husband, but the tension radiating off the man made every hair on his arms stand on end. Dressed in a business suit, he looked polished, but his clenched fists and narrowed eyes told another story. Nathan instinctively positioned himself between Emma and the man. "What are you doing with my daughter?" the man demanded, his voice dripping with barely concealed fury. "She ran up to me," Nathan said evenly, keeping his tone calm. "She seems scared." Emma's grip on Nathan's uniform tightened. "Don't let him take me," she begged. The man let out a sharp laugh, shaking his head. "She's just being dramatic. Emma, come here now." But the little girl refused to move. Nathan's hands balled into fists. He wasn't a cop, he wasn't a social worker, he was just a FedEx guy. But everything in him screamed that something was terribly wrong. A crash sounded from inside the house, glass shattering. Clara's muffled scream followed. Nathan's pulse skyrocketed. His instincts screamed at him to act. He wasn't sure if he had any legal right to intervene, but he couldn't just stand there. "Sir," Nathan said, his voice steady despite the fire building in his chest. "Maybe we should call someone, if your wife is hurt." The man's face twisted in fury. "Mind your own damn business, delivery boy, or you'll regret it." Before Nathan could respond, Emma broke free from his side, bolting toward the house. "Mommy," she cried. Nathan lunged after her, but the man moved faster, grabbing her wrist. Emma shrieked, struggling against his hold. That was it. Nathan grabbed his phone and dialed 911. The man turned his glare on him. "You're making a big mistake." "I don't think so," Nathan shot back. He locked eyes with Emma's father, unflinching. "You might want to let her go before the cops show up." The man hesitated. The sound of distant sirens filled the air. Neighbors started stepping out onto their porches, drawn by the commotion. The pressure in the man's jaw built before he finally shoved Emma away and stormed back inside. Seconds later, police cars swarmed the street. Officers rushed toward the house, while another gently pulled Emma away to safety. Nathan took a step back, his adrenaline still surging through his veins. He had done what he could. Now it was up to the police. From the corner of his eye, he saw Clara being led out of the house. Her face was bruised, her body weak, but she was alive. Emma broke free from the officer's grasp and ran into her mother's arms. The moment was raw, a collision of relief and pain as Clara clutched her daughter like a lifeline. Nathan exhaled, a heavy weight lifting from his chest. But the scene wasn't over. The front door slammed open again, and Emma's father emerged, red-faced and raging. "This is my house," he bellowed, pushing past an officer. "You have no right to take them from me." An officer stepped in front of him, ordering him to stop. But Nathan could see the madness in the man's eyes. He wasn't going down without a fight. Time seemed to slow as the man reached into his waistband. Nathan didn't have to see what it was to know it meant danger. "Gun!" someone shouted. The officers reacted instantly, drawing their weapons. "Drop it," one of them ordered. For a breathless second, no one moved. The tension crackled like electricity in the air. And then, with a sudden, reckless movement, the man lifted his hand. A single shot rang out. Nathan flinched, his breath catching. The man staggered backward, his weapon clattering to the ground. He hit the pavement with a dull thud, groaning in pain as officers rushed forward, securing him in cuffs. It was over, or so he thought. As the officers moved to secure the scene, a pained, guttural scream ripped through the air. Clara was on her knees, clutching Emma to her chest, shaking violently. The child was sobbing, her tiny hands clinging desperately to her mother's bruised arms. Nathan barely had time to react before the man, despite the gunshot wound in his side, thrashed against the officers restraining him. His wild, hate-filled eyes locked onto Clara and Emma. "You think this is over?" he spat. "You think you can take my family from me?" His voice turned to an unhinged laugh. "I'll find you, Clara, no matter where you go." Nathan had heard enough. With a burning fury he hadn't known he possessed, he stepped forward, his hands clenched into fists. But before he could get closer, a sergeant intervened, his voice sharp. "Get him out of here," he barked at his officers. They didn't hesitate, dragging the man toward the squad car, his screams fading into the night as the doors slammed shut. Silence settled, heavy and suffocating. Nathan turned back to Clara and Emma. The little girl's sobs had quieted, but her tiny body still trembled in her mother's arms. Clara looked up at Nathan, her eyes filled with unshed tears. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "You saved us." Nathan swallowed hard, his throat tight. "You don't have to be afraid anymore." A police officer approached Nathan, his expression serious but grateful. "You did the right thing, calling us. This could have ended a lot worse." Nathan nodded, but he barely heard the words. His mind was still processing everything that had just happened. He looked at Emma, safe in her mother's arms, and felt something shift inside him. He had started this day expecting just another routine delivery. Instead, he had stepped into a nightmare and helped pull 2 people out of it. As he climbed back into his truck, he gripped the steering wheel tighter, his hands still shaking. His route wasn't finished, but somehow, delivering packages didn't feel nearly as important anymore. Because today, he had delivered something far more valuable: hope. As he drove away, he took one last look in the rearview mirror. Emma and Clara stood together, wrapped in each other's arms, finally free. And for the first time, Nathan realized that maybe, just maybe, he had been exactly where he was meant to be. But he also knew this wasn't the end of the story, because men like that never let go so easily. And something deep inside Nathan told him this wouldn't be the last time he would have to stand between darkness and the innocent.